Welcome to All Over Entertainment, a place of free thought and free expression. Join me as I share my thoughts and creativity through podcasts, writings, and videos. Welcome to episode 2, The Fear and Disillusion Around Us. Join me today, once again, my father, Steve Hummel.
Well, hello there.
Essentially, what we're going to be talking about today is pretty much examples in our own society, through politics, through religion, the disillusion and lies that come from our world leaders, the mainstream media, to even the social media. How it's all of these negative or fear tactics that these people try and promote or spread that causes so much issues in our society, and the blatant disillusioned ignorance that even our leaders have, that is in itself fearful, that knowing that these people are running our country or have been running our country or are people that we look up to or are supposed to look up to or should have a moral high ground.
You know, you and I have talked about this many times in the past, that some of the lies and the misinformation that's out there, and it's not just on one side, it's on both sides. You know, I don't think there's any surprise when people say that Fox News is right-wing, CNN and MSNBC are left-wing or liberal. And each have their own unique way of reporting. It used to be where, like when Walter Cronkite, back when I was a kid, he literally read the news. That's what they did. They read the news. They reported it. There was no commentary.
Nope.
You know, and today, that's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with Peter Jennings, and I loved Peter Jennings. He had a very nice voice to it. Even when there was tragic news, he was very solace in that news. But that was reporting.
Right.
Now, granted, that was way before social media or instantaneous news, but still, they did reporting on it before they reported on, like before they actually brought it out to the public.
Right. You know, it's funny. It used to be, back in those days, it used to be called yellow journalism, when you made stuff up or you slanted it one way or another. But I don't have anything to back this up, but I'm just wondering, ever since the advent of social media, it almost seems like there's sensationalism in journalism now. So you have to sensationalize your headlines in the newspapers, your broadcast, and anything basically that reports the news. You have to make it bigger and better to try to entice people to listen to the next commercial break.
Oh yeah.
But it just seems like it's, like I said, I don't know if it's social media's to blame, but certainly we're seeing, we saw misinformation on social media. You can pretty much say whatever you want to say, and you can, quote this or quote that. Wikipedia was one. You could just put anything you wanted in there. Sometimes it was taken out, sometimes it wasn't, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was all accurate. So, from social media, from sensationalism in journalism, to going back to yellow journalism, it just seems like this is not something that's brand new. This has been around for a long time. This idea of lying or sensationalizing or even putting out propaganda and misinformation to get your point across.
Oh yeah, I mean, you definitely have a point with that, because, I mean, look at it now. To be a social media influencer, you need the likes, you need the follows, you need the hearts, the thumbs up, whatever the hell. And that's the same thing with mainstream media. You need to entice people to come in to watch it, to where you can get the more views, to where you don't get canceled, you don't get fired, you stay relevant.
Well, and here's the interesting part. I know that you watch different not only do you research a lot of stuff on the internet, but you listen to, look at different social medias, but you also look at different news broadcasts in regards to not just one source. But there was a study done just recently where basically you listen to those people who already have their minds made up. They listen to one news program, or where they get their news from basically one source, or it's both are on the, if you listen to two different sources, they're both going to be either moderate to liberal or moderate to conservative. And so if you listen to Fox News, you might watch maybe ABC News every once in a while, or you might watch, some other, News Nation or something like that. But for the most part, you're going to stay on the conservative side. For instance, I watch CBS News, but then I also watch CNN. And I know CNN is, colored more toward the liberal side. And, and they're both commentary. Even though CBS News tends to report the news a little bit more, they still have a commentary regarding what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
So it just doesn't seem to get away from it. And then, so if you have got the news media doing it, then anything that a politician says, anything that, local leader says is going to be either embellished or is going to be sensationalized to, again, get that viewership, get that readership. So you got to wonder, what is really behind it? Is it money that's behind this?
Could be from the lobbyists.
And there's always been said that Fox News was actually a GOP propaganda machine. It was actually created for that. I guess you could say the same thing about CNN or especially MSNBC. That definitely is.
Yeah. I think right now Fox News lost, I guess, any and all merit, at least for me, when Chris Wallace left. Chris Wallace just left, I think either late last year, early this year, whenever he left. But he was, in my opinion, the last good person of Fox News.
And Shepard. Why can't I think of his first name now? He was also from Fox. And he left. But you're right. There were some good journalists on Fox, but the overall, but when you have somebody like Tucker Carlson, and Shepard Smith, that's it. Shepard Smith was that's right. But when you have people like Tucker Carlson and trying to think Hannity, the thing that kills me is that they're actually caught in lies.
Yep.
And it doesn't make any difference.
Nope.
And so if they're sitting there reporting on our political leaders who are saying this, and all they're doing is it's pretty much just amplifying anything that a Lauren Boebert says, or Tom Cotton, or Biden, or Psaki, the press secretary. It just amplifies anything to, again, either sensationalize it or make it lean a different way or in their favor. So it's kind of hard to determine. But it's like you and I were talking. It's why is our political leaders going so far to the right or so far to the left?
To be honest, I think our political society and our government has just been fueled by one side or the other. There used to be a middle ground, but
yep.
I think there are certain leaders that just aggravated the whole camaraderie or like trying to share the middle ground and try to actually figure out how to do things. It's now my way or the highway.
Right. Yeah, what used to be the GOP and the Democratic parties, what's left of them is fairly moderate. But the problem is that both sides have an extreme. On the conservative side, you had the Tea Party that came in, and they were my way, the highway. Matter of fact, they stopped the Republicans from actually getting some of the things they wanted to get done when they were in power. And because they said they wouldn't vote for it. So they had to change the bill or change, things in order for it to accommodate Tea Party. Well, then you had the progressives on the left. You had the progressives that are doing the exact same thing today. They're saying they're not going to vote with the Democratic Party because it doesn't fall within all of the bills or whatever, doesn't fall within their guidelines. So you've got these extremes on the left and on the right that are controlling what the main political parties are doing. And you're right. It used to be where the senators and representatives, they went into the back room, they got out their cigars and their bourbon, they sat there, they smoked, they drank, and they hammered out a compromise. And when everybody came out, nobody got exactly what they wanted, but it was best for the American people. It was a compromise that worked. And now, you're right, it's my way or the highway. And part of it, it seems that both on the left and on the right is based on this fear, this fear that we're talking about today. I had told you that I had watched a TED Talk by Jonathan Haidt. He's a clinical psychologist and researcher, and he has this wonderful TED Talk in regards to what makes a conservative and what makes it liberal. And he talks about this idea of the first draft. When we're born, we're not a blank slate. There is a first draft. And he says the first draft is, what nature provides, and then experience amends the first draft. And we all come in with these five foundational, he says these 5 moral foundations. And so we all come in with, one is harm care. Second is fairness, reciprocity. The third is in-group and loyalty. The fourth is authority and respect. The fifth is purity and sanctity. And those 5 make up the moral foundation of the first draft of our moral consciousness, let's say. And as we grow and grow up, experience then begins to shape these. So, for instance, if you grow up in a family that is more, let's say, liberal-minded, or you grow up in first thing is then this idea of if you come up in a family that's open, is open to openness and to experience things different, different things. That's going to pretty much set you up for a liberal. If you are somebody who is pretty closed, you like what's safe and dependable, you come up in a family like that, and that's what they're teaching you as you grow, then you're probably going to end up being on the conservative side. So liberals tend to be a little more adventurous, a little more open to experience, where conservatives seem to be, like the safe, dependable route. And very, obviously conservative is going to be much more interested in group loyalty. And we saw that in this last president, who wanted people to be, to actually state their loyalty to him. Mm-hmm. And then authority, respect, again, this whole idea of respecting the authority, the police, and, respecting them. Don't question things. You just, you do what you're told. So when a young black man is pulled over, he's not to question, he's just to submit, period, end of story. And then purity, sanctity, this whole idea of, pro-life. Again, it goes back to this purity and sanctity of wanting things to be a certain way. No LGBT, because that's just wrong, and that's just sexual immorality as far as they would be concerned. So those three areas are really strong on conservatives, but on the Democrats would be the harm care. They're really concerned about people who are harmed, and they want to make sure that they're cared for. Second one is then, of course, fairness and reciprocity. Sorry about that. So they're very concerned about equal. So you can see that on the liberal side, harm care and fairness, reciprocity are going to be really high on their priority list. where in-group authority or in-group loyalty, authority and respect and purity are not. They're still important, but they're not as high up as making sure that everybody's equal and that everybody is cared for. And on the conservative side, it's just the opposite. They're not concerned so much about, they're more concerned about authority, respect, purity and sanctity, and that in-group loyalty. They're more concerned about that, even if it does cause harm to a certain segment of the population, or if it's or a certain segment of population maybe it isn't treated as fairly as they would like to see it. You know, I mean, it's I kind of have to laugh is that, you know, the party of Lincoln was the Republican Party. You know, that's just, I mean, to you know, the whole idea of
Far different back then.
Exactly. Exactly. It's almost as if the Democratic and Republican Party did a complete switch. Yeah. But it's really interesting, you know, how, you know, Jonathan Haidt has laid this out. All it does is show that there's, you know, we put certain things as more of a priority over others. And what do? We're very tribal. We will hook up and link up with those who are like-minded. We form a team. And we either form a political team or we have a football team. And, you know, of course you have, you know, the cheese heads, you know, they're not players, but they're the fans. And they have, you know, they are a team. They're loyal to the, you know, to the Green Bay Packers.
Who Dat Nation for the Saints?
Exactly. So we have this team mentality, and, you know, it's, again, based on these priorities of which team we're going to join. And when it comes to conservatives, you know, the title of today is, you know, Fear and Disillusion. Fear is a big part of the conservative movement. They want to keep things safe and dependable. And so fear is a good way of keeping everybody in line. Catholic Church did it for a long time. You know,
yep.
If you're afraid of going to hell, that's going to keep you from stepping outside the lines. Not much different. You know, not much different today in the political realm.
I mean, even the church, when it came to other religions or other cultures, whatever, they even started making things up or exasperating their beliefs and cultures. Like, for instance, paganism. They turned that into witchcraft or this black magic, when basically all it is harmony and communication with nature.
Right.
But they twisted it to make people scared that it's like, no, they're going to suck out your soul and feed it to Satan.
Right.
When that is furthest from the truth. Even Satanists, they want people to believe that Satanists worship and bow down to the devil. It's like they don't. That's the furthest from the truth. They don't idolize this little devil man with a pitchfork and a spork of a tail.
And that goes back to the whole idea of disillusioned. I mean, you know, we started off today with this whole idea of talking about, you know, fear and disillusion from a political standpoint, but we see that it's actually built into not only, you know, the first draft, our moral foundations from the time we were born, but also back in history with even religions. You know, this has been built into our, you know, literal DNA almost. You know, where either we're open to experience or we're not.
Yeah.
And we've seen our societies use fear to their advantage. Now, at the same time, while we talk about paganism, you also have voodoo, which had a good voodoo and a bad voodoo. Mm-hmm. You know, good juju and bad juju. You know, and so it seems like we've always had this dualism, you know, this dichotomy of good versus evil, you know, rich, poor, black, white, you know, it always had this dichotomy, this dualism. And same way, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, good, bad, black, white. It's like we can't get away from it. Nobody can come down the middle. There's no shades of gray, so to speak, And in fact, that's where we've seen in the past most of the work has gotten done, was in those shades of gray.
Well, even like going off of religion, political disillusion, there there is a politician, and you brought up her name earlier, Lauren Boebert.
Right.
Well, she's a very, very conservative person, and she is, of course, very religious as well. And something that is very much hand in hand when it comes to religion and conservatism or politics is a very touchy topic. Maybe not so much today, but just 5-10 years ago, evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And in all forms of evolution, from life to politics to whatever. And it was 2 times. On February 2nd, she tweeted that the Constitution is not evolving. And these are her words. And to say that spits in the face of every single one of our founders. And then again, on February 19th, she had to follow that up.
Well, certainly.
She said, protecting and defending the Constitution doesn't mean trying to rewrite the parts you don't like. And what is so upsetting, fearful to a degree, is the ignorance in that. Because literally since the conception of the Constitution, it was amended,
right.
It was changed, it was evolved. That's literally what the amendments are there for.
It's a living document.
Yeah.
Well, and does it surprise you that she is very religious in her statement of that? Because think about it. Those who take the Bible literally, say basically that the Bible cannot be changed, or it does, it has only one meaning and one meaning only. And that, it certainly has to be taken literally. Well, if you take it literally, then the earth revolves around the sun, the sun revolves around the earth, Earth is the center of the universe, and that there is water above the atmosphere, because that's exactly what the Bible says. Well, we know that that's not true. We know that the sun does not revolve around the earth, and we also know there's not water in space. But when they looked up and saw the blue sky, and they looked down at the Mediterranean and saw the blue water, they put 2 and 2 together, and there must be water above the dome of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to interpret the Bible in the time of which it was written. Same way with the Constitution. You have to interpret it in the time in which it was written and what was going on during that time. That's why we had the amendments. This is why you have people like Boebert who take a very literal interpretation of the Bible and takes a very literal interpretation of the Constitution. It cannot be changed. It's unchangeable. And so there, it goes right back to this whole idea of, again, you want to say religion, you want to say how we were brought up, experience, this whole idea that, we have to, things can't evolve. Evolution is just not, it's in the Bible, it says this is the way, man was made and woman was made. And so therefore, nothing can be changed. Evolution can't happen. So obviously, evolution can't happen in the Bible. Even though the United Church of Christ, which I'm a minister in, says God is still speaking, meaning that the Bible is still speaking to us in today's current world. Well, Boebert would completely reject that because God spoke, and that's it. Done. So, God's not even, an active part, as she reads the Bible. because God's not speaking. God spoke, and that's it. What's written is written, and you can't interpret it any other way. And that's what just drives ministers like myself just completely nuts.
Well, but I mean, even if the Constitution, let's just say, hypothetically, the Constitution never evolved. Well, the only people that would have voting rights would be landowners. We would not have the right to bear arms. You probably would be shot or jailed for speaking your mind. Probably still having slaves. There's so much that the Constitution has evolved over time because, believe it or not, our founders had the knowledge that time passes, things are going to change. Therefore, the Constitution that exists today is not going to be the same as it should be or would be 200 years from now.
And what's really funny is the hypocrisy in all that, because the conservatives hold fast to the freedom of speech so they can say whatever they want to say, and the Second Amendment, right to bear arms. They hold on to that hard. And yet, according to Boebert, that shouldn't even be there.
Nope.
So it's absolute. I honestly wonder how some of these people have gotten elected. I just, they don't.
Probably who you know.
I don't. Well, or again, who you disillusion.
Yep.
If you can, again, and think about, look at the campaigns. Look at the campaigns. Some of these are just unbelievable. They're going on out there. It's all based on fear. Mm-hmm. If you elect this person, they're going to give everything away to China. They're going to take all your guns away from you. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They're going to teach the critical race theory.
Yep.
In your schools. They're going to.
I mean, that was a big thing with Trump and Biden.
Yep.
That people were so scared that Biden would take away your guns.
Yep.
Well, that's never happened. Now, granted, we have more pressing matters with a pandemic.
Right.
But he's still not going to take away guns because, again, legally, he can't.
And the same thing was said about Obama. He was in for 8 years.
Yeah.
And, the ban on assault weapons expired, and you didn't see that renewed.
No. I mean, for Christ's sake, Trump did more against guns than anything because of the bump stocks.
Bump stocks, yep. Yeah.
He got rid of those.
Yep. Yeah.
But people don't want to bring that up. Nope.
No.
Let's forget about that.
No.
That doesn't matter.
No. And and when you talk about, we talk about people literally interpret the Bible. Look at what they're doing to books in the world today. We just had the author and his book was banned. Moss, Maus.
Yeah.
They wanted to ban Moss.
I forget the author's name.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's essentially a book, graphic novel.
Based on the Holocaust.
Yeah, but it paints a picture comparing the Jews and the Nazis as mice and cats.
Right.
And it's geared more towards educational. It doesn't have sensitive topics or maybe graphic scenes or depictions. Well, yeah, but go to the History Channel and go find a World War II documentary. You'll see the same exact thing.
Well, it's all right. You just open the book of the Bible because,
yep.
There's a part, and of course I can't do chapter and verse. I apologize, even though I'm a minister, just never been good at that. But when I was taking violence in the Bible in seminary, one of the one of the examples that was used was where God lifts the skirt of Jerusalem or of Israel to show her shame. In other words, that was a euphemism that God raped Israel. The violence in the Bible is unbelievable, and they're talking, my God, they killed babies. They killed every newborn from 2 years and older, or 2 years and younger.
Yep.
So how can
Story of Moses,
right?
I mean, God literally drowned the entire world in 40 days, 40 nights.
Yep.
Story of Noah.
It goes on and on and on, and the hypocrisy is unbelievable. Here they're gonna ban this book.
Yeah. If you're gonna ban a book like Mouse, Fahrenheit 451 years ago, people have continuing to talk about banning To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm. The Grapes of Wrath.
Yep. You know what? I call upon, let's ban the Bible.
Yeah.
Let's just ban it.
Well, it's certainly a lot more violent than some people want to give it credit for. I mean, I don't think Bobert would ever say that the Bible is violent in any way. But again, it's because they're reading it as a literal interpretation, not looking at the history of what was going on at the time it was written, the exile, the whole, 40 years in the desert, the wilderness. They don't look at these things and understand the corruption that was going on between the united monarchy and the divided monarchy.
Because what they're probably doing, instead of reading the actual Bible, they're reading a children's version of the Bible that has nice, colorful pictures of this nice man, Noah, saving all these cute little animals, and it was just a little light rain.
Well, speaking of children's books, I mean, what's really hilarious is they want to ban this book on the Holocaust, but again, the Republican or conservative complained about the cancel culture of when they took certain Dr. Seuss books off because they wanted to have a more inclusive, more inclusivity. They wanted to make sure there wasn't some of the stereotypes that were done back in the 50s and 60s, which were, was no big deal. I can remember, little Sambo running around the tree by the tiger. You would never get away with that today.
I mean, Tucker Carlson made an entire segment talking about a Dr. Seuss book and how cancel culture is this horrible, horrible thing, and there's nothing wrong with these Dr. Seuss depictions, but yet when you look at how Dr. Seuss drew people of different cultures, for instance, the Asian culture, right, it was the most stereotypical, borderline offensive, drawing, artwork, whatever, of an Asian person.
But it wasn't offensive to the white male news anchor.
No,
who doesn't think that that's inappropriate. Doesn't think that blackface is inappropriate. But then at the same time, complains that these Dr. Seuss books are being banned, but at the same time wants a Holocaust book banned. They want critical race theory not taught. They don't want to even address the fact that we have systemic racism in our country today. Yeah. Let's not. The less we talk about it, then the less it's a problem.
Yeah.
No, it's just buried.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of the critical race theory, I know before we recorded this episode, I showed you one or two little short clips of the John Oliver episode that I do like watching John Oliver. It is one of my sources that I get some information from, and then I do my own research on. And he had in a segment, he showed a clip of Tucker Carlson talk about the critical race theory. Carlson openly admitted in the same sentence that he doesn't fully understand critical race theory, but only knows that it's bad to teach kids this and it's wrong. And it's like, you just admitted that you know very little about it, yet you are not going to do the research to educate yourself on it, but you still come to the conclusion that it's wrong. That is the truest definition of disillusioned ignorance.
Yep. And again, it goes back to this whole idea of, what Jonathan Haidt talked about, this in-group loyalty. You stick together no matter what. You don't break ranks. You stick together with that team. So you're going to report what that team wants to hear, regardless of whether it's hypocritical, whether you really know the subject matter or not. That in-group loyalty has become such a pervasive parasite on society these days. Trump required loyalty.
Yep. Well, I mean, even CNN, the January 6th anniversary, how people had a little gathering.
Right.
CNN, one of their affiliated reporters went out and started asking people about the January 6th insurrection.
Right.
And people were saying that it wasn't Republicans who stormed the Capitol. It was insurgents. It was
Trump
FBI.
supporters.
Yeah, it was the FBI, the CIA. It was all these fake people that stormed the Capitol. And then another question that he went on to ask was about the vaccine, and that, of course, it's fake and all that. And it's like, but Trump was the one that rolled out the very first vaccines. And I mean, even Trump himself, he has been caught and documented that he supports the vaccines.
Yep.
He has gotten the vaccines, even got the booster.
Yep.
And when he even said it, which I can't believe I'm saying it, the only, I guess, admirable thing I can say about him, or respect about him, he actually told the crowd of people to go get the vaccine.
Right.
It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly safe. Should go get it. What did the audience do? Start booing him.
Yep.
And it's like, one, they now view him in part as a traitor. And it's like, it's ridiculous.
Well, and again, their excuse will be, I would assume their excuse would be, well, he was made to say that. Because if he doesn't, then it's misinformation. It's, going against the vaccine and so on and so forth. The whole vaccine being politicized is unbelievable. It's the same thing they do with masks. The politicization of masks, and again, this fear. I loved when they said, it's going to cause people to get sick to wear a mask all day. I had to laugh, because as a paramedic, a former paramedic, being in and out of the hospitals, wearing masks myself and gloving, what do you think surgeons who are working a 8 to 10 hour shift are wearing? My God,
they're not wearing masks
right.
for any particular reason. No, it's not to be as sanitized as humanly possible in the room. I mean, they can, for all they want, they can scratch their nose, they can pick their nose, they can pick at their own butts for all they care. They don't have to be as sanitized. Right. It's not like literally they have to be gloved by the associated nurse, and they are not allowed to touch
Right.
literally anything unless it is sanitized and then handed to them by the operating nurse.
Right.
So no, it's not for any health concerns or
Right.
anything like that. The masks are just useless.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this the whole idiocy of this, and this disillusionment. Going right back to the whole fear that someone is telling them what to do. Now, again, if it's if it's somebody from their group telling them, then they're okay with it. If it's someone outside their group telling them, then that's not. And I think had a Republican, had Trump stayed in office, I think he would not have required the mask mandate.
No.
He would not have required a vaccine mandate either.
No.
So because Biden has done both those things, he's the other side. Yep. He's not part of my group, so therefore I'm not going to follow it. And this is, again, this goes right back to this whole idea of, in-group loyalty, and authority. They don't respect the authority of the other side. And yet you see, on the liberal side, they're very concerned about harm and make sure that people are cared for, making sure that there's reciprocity and fairness, that everybody gets a mask, everybody gets a vaccine, everybody gets tested. Everybody has this opportunity, where the other side, no, they're more concerned that we stay in group, we stay loyal to our group, and whatever our group is saying, that's what we're going to do. So again, this whole politicization, and fear of the other side, and that's just destroying this country. Mm-hmm. Thomas Jefferson said the two-party system is going to be the destruction of this country, and he's right.
It's sad that was said almost 200 years ago.
Yep.
And no one has learned.
No.
But I mean, going back to the whole mask mandate, vaccine mandate, and of course associating it with disillusion. Years ago, in when did the
polio?
Yeah, polio
in the
outbreak.
50s. In the 50s.
There was a vaccine mandate.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to literally Google polio vaccine mandate, and there's pictures and documents showing the actual polio vaccine mandate, your polio vaccine card, just like how we have a COVID-19 vaccine card, they had a polio vaccine card.
Well, but look at it from, when I was 6 years old, 5 and 6 years old, back in 1966, 67, all the way up till now, in order for you to go to any public school, you've got to have a vaccination record.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be vaccinated for mumps and measles, rubella. There's a whole host of vaccines that you are required to have to go to school.
Yep. The main, I actually looked it up. The main ones today, because of course mumps, measles, a lot of that is now under a immune response that most people don't. You would be safe not to get it because it's been virtually eradicated, but in most cases you still get them. But the main ones that are required now in just about all states are hepatitis A and B, mm-hmm. the HPV vaccine, and the meningitis.
Right.
Those are the main ones that are required pretty much nationwide. There are others that certain states can require too, but
yeah, the MMR, which was mumps, measles, and rubella, you're right that the incidence of has decreased such that if you weren't vaccinated, the chance of you getting it is slim because the outbreaks aren't as big. But there have been outbreaks, and when there has been an outbreak, it has been devastating.
Mm-hmm.
They've literally had to quarantine that entire either school or class or group of kids because measles, I mean, they just go. And I mean, they can do some real long-lasting damage to children.
Yeah.
And if, all these anti-vaxxers and, medical waivers and religious waivers, out there, people stop getting vaccinated, these things are going to come back. Polio was eradicated for quite some time, and now there are still cases coming up in the Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a resurgence in polio again because everyone we thought it was eradicated, so no more vaccines. Measles were, again, like you said, were thought to be pretty much practically eradicated, and now we're seeing pockets coming back. Rubella you don't hear that much of, but certainly meningitis you do. The HPV cancers. Now I'm not sure if those are mandated vaccines.
HPV,
yeah, it is okay.
Yeah.
Because
not in all states.
I was gonna say not in all states, okay,
but the majority,
right?
The majority of them.
Yeah, I mean, what I don't understand is why would you want to take a chance of getting an illness or a disease that could have permanent, long-lasting effects on you? Do they really? I love the vaccine. Talk about disillusionment of they're going to put microchips in you when you get the vaccine. That I'm sorry, but
you walk around with a freaking microchip.
Oh my!
In your goddamn pocket every day.
Yeah, with your.
All right. You don't need a microchip in your body. You have one in your pocket.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I know it is ridiculous. I actually had a congregation member tell me that they would not allow they themselves nor their children to be vaccinated who were of age. They could have gotten the vaccine because it was a biochemical weapon that was being used by the United States against its own people, and it would kill. It was going to kill. The vaccine will kill. I had to sit there and kind of scratch my head going, you got to be joking. How many millions of people have gotten the vaccine?
Yeah.
And the incident of death due to the vaccine is practically nil. I love, they said about how, there's so many side effects. So many people have been hurt. No, you had to report any adverse reaction. So the sore arm that you got with the vaccine, that had to report it. If you ran a fever after the vaccine, that had to report it. Mm-hmm. Anything that created, the blood clots, of course, were definitely a serious one. But any adverse reaction to the vaccine, that had to be reported. So there was hundreds of thousands of adverse reactions. But sore arm, really? But I mean, my God, that. How much more transparent can you get?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of advertisements right now about shingles.
Yes.
And that people should get the shingles vaccine. And I'll tell you what, I can't believe I went through the shingles at 25.
Right.
That was 5 years ago. And since then, I'm not playing around with shingles ever again. That was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had. It literally knocked me down to the ground. And granted, mine wasn't that severe. The pain was severe, but luckily it was caught before to where I could get the medication for it.
Right.
And it kept the spread down.
Right.
And again, I think that's something that people don't worry about. People don't worry about either. It's like, well, I'm not going to get it. You don't know that.
No.
You don't know that. And I mean, look at the flu. When the flu first started, there was so much fear and disillusion in it. Yep. And of course now we all know it as not we all know it, but it's known as the Spanish flu, influenza, or just the flu.
B.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
there's different variants. Yep.
Why is it called the Spanish flu? Well, some people might say, well, it originated in Spain.
Right.
No, it did not.
Right.
There is actual documentation that in research done that they found out it originated in the Midwest of the United States. And then when war broke out, it actually originated from a military base out in the Midwest.
Okay.
And then when war broke out, all those soldiers went off to war in Europe and spread it so bad. Spain was literally the only country that was reporting it on a daily basis.
Oh my
gosh. And that's why it's known, unfortunately, as the Spanish flu, because they were the only ones that were actually reporting the numbers and the infection rate and the death toll of it pretty much on a daily basis. Everybody else, including the United States, kept it a secret. Hush, hush.
Well, and just to echo that, when Trump started calling it the Wuhan flu, the Chinese flu, and such, the Kung Fu flu, look what happened. People got so fearful of any Asian person. They were out there beating the hell out of them.
Yep.
I mean, the violence against Asians skyrocketed ever since Trump started calling it the Wuhan flu, the Kung flu, right on down the line. And, talk about fear and disillusionment and inciting. I mean, my God, inciting a riot's one thing, but my God, he was inciting violence against a particular race of people. And whether it started in the Wuhan lab or not, probably did. I don't know for sure whether it was from, animal or whether it was truly an accident. At this point, it really doesn't matter.
No.
Got to get it under control. And then once you get it under control, then you go back and look to make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, if it was an accident in the lab, then China is, then they're being disingenuous of admitting or fussing up to it and say, look, yeah, we screwed up. And it got out. If it's truly from an animal, then we've got to be, certainly diligent about finding out how it did happen. But this whole idea of blaming it on a particular race is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is, as far as I know, there is no virus that originates from one particular race that is deadly to another.
Right.
It's just not. It's not there. And I mean, the same thing happened with the Ebola virus. It just brought discrimination and hatred towards Africa.
Right. Yes, it did.
So, it's that fear and disillusion. People need someone to blame. And yes, could it have originated in Wuhan? Yes. But it's not that Wuhan spread it. It was the ignorance of people that allowed it to spread. It could have gotten under control so much easier. There were Asian countries, Taiwan. They got it under control literally within a year.
Right.
And because everybody took the responsibility in themselves to take it upon themselves, to wear masks, wear gloves, and do the appropriate things necessary to help each other. And it worked. It did it. Eventually, they themselves were at a point where they started shipping out masks and other aid to other countries that needed it because they didn't need it.
Right.
Because they were good.
Yeah, because when you're all in the same boat, then you're all on the same team. And that's why you saw a lot of cooperation amongst countries and, even to some degree, political parties. There was a lot, obviously there's a lot of Republicans out there who are vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we'd only be about 50%. But, the $64,000 question is, how do you eliminate the fear and disillusion? And in reality, when fear has been used almost from the start of time, humanity, we've seen it literally brought up through religions, and it be used as a behavior modification. You're seeing it used as a political tool. You're seeing it to benefit one side or the other. Trying to use education, which normally is the answer. You educate people so that they don't have to be afraid. But unfortunately, it's been used such as a weapon that I don't know that education will ever be able to truly eradicate fear. And that's the really sad part about it. We can sit here and talk about it. We can, analyze it and, talk about different examples of how fear has been used, across the ages and even in our political landscape today. But, how to stop it is a whole nother, podcast, whole nother episode.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen King came out and said once a mouse started getting some traction on getting banned,
right?
He said, go out and buy the book. Anytime a book is banned, that's the book you should read. Because there's something about that book that people don't want you to see or don't want you to read. And it's that material that you should seek out and read because it's well worth the information. And I truly believe in self-educating too.
Right.
We are at a point in our society, in our era, that it is easy to find information. You gotta look for it. You gotta use common sense, and you gotta use your analytical brain to question it or to look at it and to compare it to one source to another source to another. I mean,
well, there's hope that there's stories after story after story about white supremacists or KKK members who, after meeting or having a positive experience with someone of a different race, their fear went away, and they no longer were afraid of this person. They realized they were a human being, and then they end up renouncing their white supremacy. There's numerous stories about that. People, like you said, yes, education is certainly one of the best ways of getting rid of fear, but relationship, when it's kind of hard to gay bash if you actually have a relationship or somebody who is gay and they're your friend and you realize they're just as normal as you and I, and they are just as friendly, they are just as moral, and you soon realize that because you have a relationship, that there's no longer that fear. You're no longer fearful of them. So I think between education, between getting, like you said, getting out there and actually reading a book, getting that relationship, meeting those people, stepping out of your comfort zone, and actually doing something rather than sitting here and just bitching about it.
Yeah, I mean, experience other cultures, experience other lives. I mean, that's how you'll learn. That's how you can put yourselves in their shoes and see life differently.
Right.
And then you'll have a lot more respect.
And that's what we've done at the church that I'm pastoring. We're what's called an open and affirming church, and we are inclusive. We are not exclusive. Anybody who wants to walk through those doors can, and they can question, and they can ask questions, they can doubt, and that's the whole thing. When you are inclusive, when you allow yourself to experience, like you said, those other cultures, those other people, go out, like King said, go out and read that book, because obviously there's something there that somebody doesn't want you to see or read. When you experience those things, it gives you a different perspective. And I guess the only thing we can hope for is somewhere along the line, a different perspective is actually entertained. But if Jonathan Haidt's right, and this in-group loyalty is really part of the moral foundation, we're really fighting an uphill battle, and it's going to be hard. But at this point, if we give up, we're definitely sunk. So I don't think we have much choice but to keep trying.
That's a wrap on this episode from All Over Entertainment. Thanks for tuning in, and check out the Facebook page for more writings, podcasts, and videos. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Also, you can click the link to the Discord page and be a part of the entertainment community. Thank you again, and see you next time.